So when you first thought of raising chickens, you may have gone to the internet for some information. But how much of that information was maybe incorrect or just a myth? Today, we're going to talk about some common chicken keeping myths, so stay tuned.
So before we start, we should probably address the missing piece of the team. So in case you were wondering, is Eric no longer part of the Hobby Farm guys? Unfortunately, he will be back. Yeah, he's just decided to spend a little time away with his wife instead of being here with us. I don't understand why.
Right? It's crazy. Now, before we get to chicken myths, I understand you have an update on the duck pond.
I do, yeah. So last time I outlined there were 6 steps that I needed to complete this project. Well, step 1 is done, and here's how it went. All right, so last time we did an update on the duck pond project, I told you the next step was to move this shed onto the pad that I made for it. And that's what we're here to do today. I've got my son-in-law Jesse to help me out, so thank you to Jesse, and we'll see how this goes. The plan is we're going to lift it up, put some casters underneath it, some wheels, and hopefully the ground underneath isn't too soft that the wheels just dig in. If it is, well, then we'll figure out what we're going to do next. All right, so it turns out the ground underneath was a little too soft and the wheels just sank all the way in. So that's not going to work. So now we're going to try and do a push-pull. We're going to pull with Jesse's truck, push with my tractor, see if we can get it into place that way. So it was a bit touch and go there. We did manage to get the shed in place. We got it pulled onto the pad, and then as you can see here, we had to do a little fine adjusting to make sure it was in the right spot for the electrical conduit to come in. Next step, adding power to the shed. And we're gonna hopefully do that in the next couple of weeks, and we'll keep you updated when we do.
Okay, so progress.
Yeah, a little bit of progress.
Baby steps.
Still a lot more to go, though.
That's all right. All right, so now it's time for the myths.
Yeah.
Myth number 1. Chickens can survive on pasta and beans.
Yeah, I've heard this one, and I've heard it in different ways, like hot dogs and bread, or beans and bread, or other protein-carb combos. And it's kind of a myth, but kind of not. They can survive on those things, but they're not going to thrive. They need essential vitamins and minerals as well, not just any old mix of proteins and carbs. If you want your chickens to, lay productively, stay healthy, live long, I'd probably give them a little bit more of a balanced diet than just beans and pasta.
Yeah, and things like hot dogs or those processed proteins oftentimes are high in salt or have other things in there that aren't good for chickens as well.
Yeah. All right, so the next myth we'll get to is that you need a rooster to have eggs. Or similarly, I've heard if you have a rooster, you'll get a lot more eggs.
Right. That's the one I originally fell for.
Yeah.
When I first ended up with a rooster. I'm like, your hens will lay better if there's a rooster around. No, that's not true at all. The hens are going to, cycle and lay their eggs with or without a rooster. A rooster is absolutely not needed for that unless you want fertile eggs.
That's true.
Without a rooster, you're not going to get fertile eggs.
Yeah.
So there are reasons to have a rooster, but if you're just looking for eggs, a rooster isn't needed at all.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of pros and cons to having a rooster. We could probably do a whole video just on that. But when it comes to getting eggs, the rooster is not needed. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one I've got is that chickens are dumb animals and they can't be trained.
Yeah, we like to joke about that, don't we? About how dumb our chickens are. And they may seem dumb to us, but it's just their prey animal behavior that they're displaying. Their instinctual behaviors may seem strange to us or dumb to us, but really it's what helps them to survive. It's those things like, being scared by little things, or pecking at every little thing that they see on the ground. That's what they need to do to survive in the wild, and they've adapted, and so those instincts carry over into our domestic flocks.
Yeah, if you're willing to put in a little bit of time and effort, some positive reinforcement and things like with treats, chickens are actually, a lot of them, pretty easy to train.
Yeah.
and do a good job.
Yeah, recently we saw at a poultry show the kids with their chickens. I was amazed at how well trained some of those birds were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so the next myth is you shouldn't feed meat to your chickens. Or a similar myth that goes along with this is it's fine to give them meat, just don't give them chicken.
Right? And there are reasons why people think that, but as far as, it's bad for them or going to cause problems, is just not true. Chickens are omnivores, right? They eat plants, they also eat meat. They eat insects, they'll eat mice, gophers, snakes, lizards, whatever they can find. Also, they'll eat carrion if they find it. Mm-hmm. It's not a problem. As for eating chicken, a lot of people, usually the argument there is, well, if they eat chicken, they'll get a taste for it, and then they'll become cannibalistic, and I'll have a problem. Not true.
Right.
However, it's still a good idea. You don't want to throw a dead carcass out to your chickens and teach them that this is a meal.
No.
Right. If you've got leftover chicken, or you've processed chickens and you have some leftover bones and stuff, and you want to toss out and let them clean up, that's fine. That's a tasty, high protein snack for them. But again, if one of your chickens dies, don't feed that back. First of all, she might have died because she had some sort of infection or something. You don't want to pass that on.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons not to feed a chicken carcass to your chickens. I mean, there's the disease issue.
Yeah.
What caused her to die? There might be something there that you don't want your chickens eating. And it can also, if they're pecking at a carcass, it can incite them to want to peck at each other.
Right.
So
it's the same thing with like eggs, right? I don't feed my chicken
a whole
raw egg,
right.
But if I scramble it up, it's fine. It's a nutritious snack. Same thing with
Right.
chicken.
Sounds good. All right, what's our next myth?
So the next one is, I personally, I challenge this, because the myth is chickens are noisy animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a rooster that makes me want to say that this is true, although realistically,
Yeah, I mean, if you have a rooster that is particularly loud, or if you have a huge flock of chickens, you've got 60, 70 birds out there, obviously it's going to make quite a bit of noise. But if you just have a small backyard flock of hens, it's really no louder on average than a couple people holding a normal conversation. So it's somewhat true if you go extreme with a large flock, or if you have a loud rooster, but otherwise, not really noisy animals.
some breeds are going to be a little bit chattier than others.
Yep.
But overall, chickens are quieter than many pets.
Right.
Dogs or other options that bark. Chickens are actually pretty quiet.
Yeah, or goats.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me
Goats
started.
are awesome,
Don't get me started on goats.
but they can be noisy. All right, so our next myth: chicken coops must be heated in the winter.
Okay, so this is mostly false. Chickens are designed, right, to conserve body heat.
Right.
The way their bodies are designed with their feathers, and they fluff them up and trap air. They make great insulation. There are dangers when you start heating coops. Lots of coop fires started by heat lamps, that kind of stuff. There are other safer alternatives that can be used, but for the most part, if you have chickens appropriate for your climate, you're not going to need to heat during the winter.
Yeah, we say this one is mostly true because if you're keeping a breed that is developed for a warmer climate in an area where it gets really cold, you might need to heat up that coop a little bit. Or if you're in an extreme cold situation. Now, it gets pretty cold here.
Yeah.
You know, we get the sub-zero temperatures, -10, sometimes -20 degrees.
-30.
But yeah, but if you're in like the Arctic Circle or something and trying to raise chickens, first of all, why? But the other part of that is, yeah, at that point where it's going to be a prolonged time of extreme cold, maybe you need a little bit of supplemental heat. But for most people who are keeping a backyard flock, supplemental heat just isn't required.
Yeah. Again, bantams or some of these breeds that maybe are a little bit smaller, there might be an exception to that rule, but for the most part, if you have, again, breeds appropriate for where you live,
Yeah.
you're not going to need to have extra heat. So there's 6 common myths. Many people still believe them.
Yep.
Right? So what other myths have you guys heard of? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, we actually enjoy kind of seeing these things and figuring out what's what and what the real story is. Some of the things that people say are myths actually are not, but a lot of the things that people talk about turns out they are myths. So maybe we'll do a part 2 to this sometime. And if you think we've earned it, we'd love for you to click that like button, subscribe to the Hobby Farm Guys, and of course,
Keep on hobby farming.